Welcome to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson. We're live on Twitch, on Patreon. If you are listening afterwards, we're live on the Republic of Football podcast feed. No, wait, new name. Same old us. The Dave Campbell's College Podcast feed. Very exciting. We are here in the Stretch Lab studio. Don't just stretch, get stretched. Shout out to our friends over at Stretch Lab in Lubbock. On the Payne, Powell, Truett, and Chandler rundown today, we've got an Arkansas Pine Bluff recap. Just small things. We'll ask Kyle why he's so negative with nothing to back it up. We'll also talk Kent State a little bit today. We'll look around the Big 12. We've each got some power rankings, and we'll go from there. At the end of this episode, as always, we'll say goodbye to our podcast listening audience and hello to our Patreon audience. If you want to join the Patreon audience, patreon.com/GamblingGauchos. We'll finish our mailbag there and do some more behind the scenes. Kyle, how are you?
Fantastic.
You look good.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Not as good as money generally does, but I think you and I try.
Yeah, we do the best we can do, and that's all we can do.
We're the brains. He's the looks. He's the eye candy. So
He's the technical analysis.
We'll trudge. We'll trudge along today without him. All right. Let's see, Kyle. Texas Tech played Arkansas Pine Bluff, and that's about everything I have for the game. I think going through the pregame stuff, looking into who we were playing, talking about it all offseason, I did want to see a few things. First of all, I wanted to see a 60-point game. Not only scoring 60, but being 60 ahead of them, and you did that. I wanted to see a smooth, crisp-looking offense, and you did that in a couple respects. I wanted to see you run big chunks of ground game. You did that. I wanted to see these transfers look like, live up to the billing. All four defensive linemen got at least a half a sack. Terrence Carter scored 2 touchdowns. Reggie Verdreau scored a touchdown. I mean, everything that I went into the game wanting to see pretty well was taken care of in the game. So I have no complaints. If I was like digging into some complaints, it would have been what Joey McGuire said early in his press conference, that there were some special team issues. He missed an extra point. There was the blocking fouls on 2 of the kickoffs. But beyond that, everything I wanted to see happened. And I really have no complaints in a win over Arkansas Pine Bluff, except for, that you played them.
Yeah, there were certain things that it is very difficult to assess, not only when you play an FCS squad, but one of the worst FCS squads. But there are other things you can ascertain that are independent of your opponent, like, will the new offensive coordinator who didn't target tight ends at his previous school target them here? And seemed like, yes, we schemed up some stuff for Terrence Carter, the 6'2", 239-pound tight end out of Eulala. It doesn't really matter if Baron Morton is throwing the ball against Ohio State or Air. Zip is zip, and there was some zip on the ball that I think we maybe hadn't seen in a while. In fact, I think his only 2 misses, he airmailed it. He threw it way too hard, way too high, way too far. For a guy coming off of a shoulder surgery, you'd much rather him miss long and high than, short and weak. So, I was basically, you wanted a dominant game start to finish, the way some of these G5 and FCS games have gone since, I guess, about the COVID year. You've had to sweat a couple of them out. You've lost to a group of 5 opponent. So 47-0 at halftime was a welcome change of pace in that regard. And the other big thing that I was looking for was no major injuries. I know your quarterback is sore, but it sounds like he avoided what could have been a lot worse when you see how his knee and ankle kind of got rolled up on. That could have been a high ankle sprain. It could have been a torn ACL or something like that. So the fact that he's sore and the X-rays and MRIs were negative, I think, is a good sign. I haven't heard an update on Mike Dingle, but yeah, I think all things considered, there's really not much to complain about besides maybe the uniforms, if you want to do that. I do want to clear I feel like 99% of our listeners probably know this, but it can't hurt to clarify. There was a tweet sent from the Gauchos account shortly after the game went final, um, basically hitting on 4 or 5 bullet points of everything that went wrong. You lost the fourth quarter 7-6. The uniforms looked bad. You had to pull your starting quarterback. The stream went out. Can't remember if there was something else, but a couple people replied to that tweet and said, "This is just outrageous and ridiculous. I can't believe how negative you're being." And it just, I can understand missing like a subtle joke on the internet or in real life. But I mean, it was so obviously satire. Like, is it your first day on Twitter or the internet? Like, I've almost fallen for rage bait before, and then I'm like, oh, they did that on purpose. They're not serious. Like, for example, I saw a top 10 NFL quarterbacks list yesterday that didn't have Patrick Mahomes on it anywhere. It wasn't that he was lower than Burrow or Hurts. He just wasn't in the top 10. It's like, you don't reply to that person and go, "Don't you know Patrick Mahomes is top?" It's just like, oh, okay, they're making a joke on the internet, and you move on. So, I want to reply to these people and be like, was there ever a moment where you were like, man, this is so outrageous, this person might be joking? And I guess it didn't, they recognized that it was outrageous, but it didn't quite click all the way that far for them. So, anyway, no, we have no negative takeaways from the game. We're not negative people. We're not negative. We're not a negative persona on Twitter, despite the allegations. So anyway, just wanted to clear the air on that, Rob, in case the 1% of our listeners thought that we
Yeah.
were being gambling grouchos after the game.
I'm glad that's clear.
Yeah.
All right. I really don't want to spend 45 minutes on this a game. I do think that both of us thought it was a positive outcome because you want to know, and that's the main thing. And in today's college landscape, the Big 12 teams will likely need to win the Big 12 to be in the playoff. But even if not, you have to be 11-0, 12-0, 10-0 to really be in the conversation at the end of the year. So baby steps. We'll talk about scheduling later on, and I think we can get into some other nuances of scheduling. But first, I'm going to run through the rest of the Big 12 for week 1. I'm going to read all the results, Kyle. If you want to cut in and stop me for a game, go for it. I think there are a few games that I'll have something to say about, but it's been so long on some of these that I think we've discussed and cussed enough on most of them. UCF beat Jacksonville State 17-10, and it took a last-minute touchdown to do it.
Yeah, they suck.
Oklahoma State beat UT Martin 27-7 and lost Hoss Haney for the next 5 weeks. Houston shut out Stephen F. Austin 27-0. Cincinnati fell to Nebraska 20-17, and Brennan Sorsby looked bad for most of it. Threw for 69 yards and had a terrible pick at the end to lose the game. I think Sorsby will have a better season than that, but that was a rough start. And you're still in the game. I mean, it's 20-17, and he had a terrible game. Kansas beats Wagner 46-7. Baylor loses to Auburn 38-24, and it really wasn't that close. Georgia Tech beats Colorado 27-20. Dion was talking through he was talking through this time management at the end of the game today in his press conference. He did his best to defend it. But the fact is they had a minute and 10 seconds with 2 timeouts and ran 4 plays. I mean, it's one of the worst clock managements at the end of a game I've ever seen. And some of that's on Dion. A lot of it's on Pat Shurmur and Caden Salter. He also went into how he and Pat Shurmur want Caden to basically call the game at the end. And that's fine if he's prepared, but he looked ill-prepared to do so.
They also were up 3-0 in the turnover differential at halftime and still found a way to lose. I feel like noticeably that is not the same Colorado team as last year that had, in my opinion, an elite playmaker at quarterback, an elite two-way player that was a really good receiver and a really good corner, defensive line that was a terror. And they just didn't seem like they had any of that. They had the ball bounce their way quite literally on a couple of fumbles and could not put Georgia Tech away by any stretch. And then if you take out those turnovers, like if they were even or God forbid -1 in the turnover differential, that could have been even worse. So they looked much more inept than last year. That was, they were one of the few teams that played a real squad week 1. So one of the few teams that had any sort of real opinion or takeaway from the game.
There was a moment in that game where we're getting texts in the group chats or in the Discords, and people are saying, is Colorado good again? Is Colorado really good again? Oh, man, Colorado's done it again. And it's like Georgia Tech has 3 turnovers in their first 3 possessions, and they're driving to tie it right now. Like,
yeah, I think we need to implement a new rule, especially in college football, but maybe just football in general. You cannot have a take right after the first drive of the game. Like pretty much any offensive coordinator at this level probably has a good script. It doesn't always work, but it's kind of like the inbounds out of a timeout. A good coach is going to score. Like I think Beard said that Bill Self scored on like 70% of inbounds after a timeout. Okay, Zach Kitley, FAU. They march right down the field. It's 7-0. They're on the road at Maryland. The game ends like 43-7. Yeah. Belichick last night. Oh my God, Chapel Bill. He's got this thing rolling. Like they didn't complete a pass for another hour after that. So I think Colorado scored on their opening drive after a turnover, by the way. So big momentum swing, short field. Let's just tap the brakes after drive 1 and see what drives 2 and 3 look like. Maybe even play a whole half of football before coming to these grand conclusions. That's all I ask.
Might behoove us as a people. Arizona State 38-19 over Northern Arizona. I didn't get to watch much of that game, but it doesn't seem like a result that shouts number 12 team in the country now.
No, and they threw the ball twice as often as they ran it, which feels like a weird play call breakdown. I know it wasn't a full-on blowout like Texas Tech over Pine Bluff was, but I feel like you should at least have a 50-50 run-pass split against an FCS opponent. And I think they threw the ball 40 times, ran it 20. So they also didn't get a ton of offensive snaps, but it's like, why did you have to throw that much? I was in denial at the time, but it reminds me of, I think it was 2016, maybe, Texas Tech versus SFA. And yeah, Cliff threw it 60 times, and it was like, did you not think you could just run it against SFA? And he was like, well, it's just the look we were getting. And so to me, that's kind of a red flag if you have to throw it twice as often as you run it against an FCS opponent.
Then we had 2 teams, North Dakota and South Dakota, played 2 teams that played each other the last week. I think both these teams are fairly similar in the FCS world. In fact, South Dakota is supposed to be better than North Dakota this year. Now, supposed to be is one thing, is another. But North Dakota has a lead on Kansas State in the final 2 minutes, and Avery Johnson has to have some heroics to drive down and win this game. Johnson, 28 of 43, 318 yards through the air, and 3 touchdowns. The final touchdown, the game winner, 38-35, that final. And Iowa State just hammers South Dakota 55-7. If you're looking at two of these teams, and we're doing power rankings in a minute, one's going one way and one's going the other, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I will say for Kansas State, I know Tech fans would love to dunk on Matt Wells, and if you beat an FCS opponent by 3, there's probably some shared blame on all sides of the ball. But to me, their offense was not the problem that game. I want to give Avery Johnson some credit, since my criticism of him week 0 was that he got the ball, I think, 8 times, either tied or down 1 score, and they never took a lead. Kind of want to give him credit for the game-winning drive, but also it was at home against an FCS opponent, so I'm going to maybe wait till he does that against a Power 4 opponent. I think that's fair. But yeah, they avoided disaster, and we have done that a few times at home against an FCS opponent where you don't feel good at all about that kind of win, but man, a loss would be 100 times worse. So there's some frustration I can tell from K-State fans about Kleiman and all that. I'm not sure if they're going to get it back on track this season or not. But yeah, they are certainly seemingly trying to dig themselves out of a hole early in the season.
Their offensive line has been bad. Was bad against North Dakota. Did you see their offensive? I think it was the right tackle. Did you see his rep today that somebody shared?
Yes.
Where he just olayed a guy, watched him go by, and it was like, oh, maybe on film, if I look like I'm prepared for the next guy to come, it won't look as bad. So he just stayed. He didn't follow. He didn't follow the 2 guys that ran right by him.
I love that move. Do nothing but put your head on a swivel so it looks like you're like looking for action, even though you're clearly not.
Yeah, that was bad. West Virginia, I did not see a single snap of this. 45-3 over Robert Morris. But Nico Marchiol, 17 of 20, 224 yards. A touchdown. Jaheim White, 18 carries, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns. And they really pulled away in the fourth quarter. 10-3 at halftime.
Yeah, I didn't see any of this one, to be honest.
BYU beat Portland State 69-0. And Bear Bachmeier was 7 of 11 for 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. He ran for 2 more. LJ Martin, 8 carries, 131 yards. They mixed the tight ends in as well. If Bear Bachmeier has a couple of good weeks, I'm prepared to say that BYU might be even better than last year, but I'm reserving that until Bachmeier does it a couple times, since he's a true freshman.
Yeah, again, I'm withholding judgment until it's against someone besides Portland State.
Arizona beats Hawaii 40-6. How bad is Stanford? And Utah beats UCLA 43-10. Devin Dampier, 21 of 25, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, 16 carries, 87 yards, another touchdown. And their corner was their leading receiver with 6 receptions and 51 yards.
They looked good. I think you and I were higher on them than most coming into the season. And them and TCU were the 2 Big 12 squads that went on the road and not only beat a Power 4 opponent, but demolished them. So I know other Big 12 fans don't want Utah to be good because they don't like their fans on Twitter. But I think that's a really good football team. And I don't want to hear about how bad UCLA is when everybody else is playing Pine Bluff and Portland State and Merrimack or whatever. Like, sure, UCLA is not a good Power 4 team or a good Big 10 team, but they would also beat Robert Morris or whoever the hell by 50 points if they played them.
And then last night, TCU 48, North Carolina 14. And that was just a massacre. North Carolina scored first, but it was all TCU from there. A scoop and score, a pick 6, and more. Emphasis on the more.
Yeah, I'm not going to downplay TCU's win. Like, others have. I do think it was probably aided somewhat by, two defensive scores that were both huge North Carolina mistakes. But Josh Hoover looked good. They had 2 or 3 different backs that looked really good. Blanking on his name, but the receiver 7 looked really good. He had awesome chemistry with Hoover.
Yeah, Dwyer.
So Bud Clark is still on that team. I thought he graduated like 2 years ago. So I guess they're old in the secondary. I think they're going to be a good team too. They were one I was kind of them, Colorado and BYU were probably the 3 that I was not so sure about. Like could be really good, maybe not so much coming into the season. And Kansas, I would throw in there. BYU has not really had an opportunity to show me one way or the other. Colorado had a chance and failed the test. TCU had a chance and passed the test. So I know we're going to get into power rankings soon, but I moved them up pretty significantly.
Bud Clark was awesome his first year or two. And then hadn't really done anything since. And I kind of had forgotten he was on the roster too. And then coming in, it's like, oh, well, Bud Clark's there, all Big 12. It's like, well, yeah, but is he still good? Apparently he's
Also,
healthy now and looked good against North Carolina.
Also, Joseph Manjack is on that team.
Yes, from Houston.
He was on the 2022 Houston team that played in Lubbock. And when he was on that Houston team, he was labeled like USC transfer Joseph Manjack. So he's been in college at least year 5. I guess maybe if he redshirted in 21, he's on a normal trajectory, but it feels like he's probably been in college at least 5, if not 6 years.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when the hell are some of these guys going to leave?
I want to say Bud Clark was there in 2020.
I have no idea anymore.
I'd have to check on that.
Could have been. Who knows?
All right, let's do our Visit Lubbock power rankings here, Kyle. Hey, Visit Lubbock is not only a proud partner of Dave Campbell's, they're also a proud partner of the Gamblin' Gauchos podcast. You can check out game previews for every home game and otherwise at texasfootball.com. And if you come to Lubbock, just know Lubbock is always game day ready. Hey, even with the rain this weekend, some of these shots coming out of Lubbock, Texas, these camera photographers, photos, just beautiful, beautiful stadium shots. The crowd was packed. It was really full for an FCS game. And if you want to have a weekend getaway to Lubbock, visit Lubbock's Guide Showcases at the Hub City. Has something for everyone. You know, these Big 12 schools, they go around saying, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. Did you see, this is in the middle of an ad read, but did you see Kenny Dillingham say that his whole team got sick last year in Lubbock for the first time?
Yes, I did.
He was talking about going down to Stark Vegas. And he was saying, you know, we're an hour away from the stadium. Some of these small towns, well, we were in Lubbock and we got sick. 10 of our guys were getting IVs. Well, you won't get sick if you come to Lubbock. That was something they did. They got some weird sandwiches. They brought them with them probably. That is not something that will happen to you. Come visit the Hub City. Something for everybody. Explore the local dining. If they went to some of these local restaurants, they wouldn't have gotten sick. That's for sure. Family-friendly attractions and experience unique West Texas charm that makes every visit unforgettable. Thank you again. And Visit Lubbock is where you need to be to learn about this great city of ours. Visit Lubbock.org is your place to find out more. Go check out those guides and check out the previews on TexasFootball.com. All right, Kyle, I'll let you do your power rankings first. I'll follow with mine, and we will confer.
Alrighty. With 16 teams, I'm actually going to break this down into tiers rather than split the difference on, that team's not number 12, they're number 11, because who really cares?
I like it.
So tier number 1, these are teams that have had an opportunity to beat a Power 4 opponent away from home and took advantage of that opportunity. Utah, Iowa State, TCU. That's tier 1. Tier 2 are squads that have pretty high expectations coming into the season, but have not played anybody significant yet. However, they've performed relatively well in games against inferior competition. Tier 2 is Texas Tech, Arizona State, Kansas, and BYU. Tier 3 are teams that had moderately high expectations coming into the season, have had an opportunity against a Power 4 opponent, and did not take advantage of it. Tier 3 is Kansas State, Baylor, Colorado. And then the bottom tier, put in whatever order you want, teams that did not have much expectations coming into the season and also have not shown much one way or the other yet. Houston, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, Arizona, West Virginia, UCF. I would say Arizona, Houston, probably the more impressive ones out of that bunch in terms of performance start to finish. But that tier is kind of like, who cares at this point? Open to them proving me wrong later in the season, but I'm not going to argue with those fans over who's 11 or 13 or 15 because it doesn't matter.
There are certainly two schools of thought when doing power rankings. And I feel like you've taken one school, which is certainly preseason expectations plays into it. But the games that have been played certainly are a heavy factor here.
Yes.
I went the other way. And I made a power rankings before the season. And if you were up there and haven't done much, but you were up there early, you're still there. And if you were at the bottom and you've done a lot, maybe you've moved up some, like a TCU. They've moved up 3 or 4 places in my power rankings, but here they are. I've got 2 tiers. I've got Big 12 contender and not contender.
Okay.
And just so happens it's an 8 and 8. I'll start at the bottom. UCF has moved down to the 16th. I've got Arizona up to 15, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Houston, Colorado, Cincinnati, Kansas State is at 9. Kansas State, I think, was at 4 or 5. But I feel like at 1-1, they have done enough to drop that far. And until they win a couple or have a convincing win, I'm not prepared to put them in the contender category anymore. The top 8, BYU at 8, TCU at 7, Kansas at 6. And that's basically just because that's the order they were in before, but they've all moved up into the top 8. Arizona State, at 5. Baylor was 2. They're now at 4. Utah 3, Iowa State 2, Texas Tech was 1 to start and will continue to be 1 until provoked. I think if Iowa State beats Iowa handily, they'll be number 1 next week, in my opinion, regardless of what Texas Tech does to Kent State.
Yeah, you're spot on. Mine are very much resume based, especially this early in the season, as we have 11 more games to move teams up and down based on results. So it's been a lot of discourse about a lot of FPI and Josh Pate's power rankings and stuff like that still have Texas number 1. Like, I get it from an analytics standpoint, and that whatever you plug into your algorithm and it spits it out that Texas is the best team in the country, fine. But for me, just a guy on the internet, the results of the games matter. That's the ultimate thing that matters, in my opinion. So now that we've got real football being played, I've still factored in preseason expectations to some extent because there are coaching staffs that I feel a certain way about, roster talents that I feel a certain way about. But yeah, I think we should let the play do the talking as much as possible. And it's week 1, so West Virginia fans, if you're mad that you're 15th, go beat a Power 4 team, preferably in convincing fashion. I'll move you way up. I'm not beholden to whatever was last week. So go beat Pitt by 20 whenever that game is, and you'll probably move up into the top half of the rankings.
And Utah certainly did what they did against UCLA, but now they have Cal Poly and Wyoming. And Wyoming is not the Wyoming that went down in 2023 and let Texas Tech come down to Laramie and put the brakes on them, took them to the deep end of the pool. But I do believe that quarterback's name was Sepulveda. Sepulveda? Sepulveda?
No, Swoboda.
Swoboda. Okay. I was looking at Wyoming's roster the other day, and I thought that guy had moved to tight end, but a different guy, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, Utah goes to Laramie in 2 weeks. They play Cal Poly at home, and then they go to Laramie. But this is a new head coach. They were not any good last year. So the next opportunity that Texas Tech has, I would say, is Oregon State, though they just lost to Cal. So really the next two opportunities that these two teams have is against each other. And it could be a ranked matchup, Kyle, as Texas Tech moves down 1 to 24, and Utah enters the top 25 at 25 in the AP poll. Arizona State drops 1 with South Carolina and Indiana. I don't know how Indiana jumped them, but at 12. And then Iowa State moves up considerably. And those are the 4 teams in the rankings: Arizona State, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Utah. And I had my rankings done before the AP poll, but it just so happens those are my top 4 teams. Kansas State out. BYU, the number 1 team receiving votes with like 100 votes in the top 25.
I bet the only reason TCU is not ranked is because a lot of people submitted their ballots before that game was played.
I would believe that, yes.
I would not have complained if Utah or TCU jumped Tech in the rankings. I'm like you, I don't see why Indiana did. But yeah, I kind of half expected to move back because I thought some teams right outside the top 25 at this point through 1 week, which doesn't matter, have a better resume than Texas Tech. And that's partly our fault for playing Pine
Yeah.
Bluff. But you'll have every opportunity to move back up, so no crying.
Alabama falls to 19. Florida State jumps to 14. I'm doing off memory, but I believe those two are correct. So it's interesting. Certainly, I'm happy to be ranked. Certainly, but if I'm looking through this kind of stuff, it is what it is at this point. All right, did you see McNeese State, Kyle? McNeese State play their game?
No.
I actually don't know the final score, but I did see this graphic today. Strong start. First ever Cowboy to throw for 300 plus in his debut. Jake Strong, 22 of 28, 329 yards, 3 touchdowns against Louisiana Christian. So I just wanted to give Jake Strong a shout out. I didn't see Western Kentucky's final, but I was upset that I didn't add Jake Strong into the quarterback U post from the Gambling Gauchos a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, when you were 100% sincerely trying to claim
Yes.
Tyler Shuck and Baker Mayfield.
Yes, quarterback U.
Yeah.
And Maverick McIver. All right. Just for a second, Kyle, let's go through Kent State. I do think there was some things we wanted to see from the Red Raiders against Pine Bluff. Give me 4 points of emphasis thereabouts on what you might want to see against Kent State, because this is another really bad ball club.
No injuries, no bad penalties, total dominance, start to finish. That's about it.
Yeah. Basically what you did against Pine Bluff, just cleaner, no missed extra points, no dumb, what was that swinging gate thing that they did? And I understand why they did it. They did it against ACU. Just put something up there. Of course, it almost cost them against ACU.
It saved us against ACU.
Oh, they made it last year, right?
Yeah.
It saved us, yeah.
But yeah, you do that to put something goofy on tape so that every team preparing for you has to spend 5 minutes on that at practice every week. and you're just wasting their time. But it's a decent strategic move.
Baron Morton, I would like to see running around for at least a half. But again, if it gets to 28-0 in the first quarter or the first 10 minutes of the second quarter, the first 5 minutes of the second quarter, I don't know that I need to see him too much more. I'd like for him to get out there and put some stats up because there are things that you need stats for at the end of the year, but I do think that I would rather have him for 12 games than have him play a bunch against Kent State.
Yeah. I want to see some Adam Hill as well.
Yes, more Adam Hill. Someone asked if he could be the Carson Hansen of Texas Tech. And it's like, well, I think Cam Dickey can be also, but I certainly want Adam Hill and Leighton Stone and a lot of these guys that you might need eventually this year to be out there and get reps. Micah Hudson, maybe a couple of more targets for Micah Hudson. I'd like to see him get a kickoff return that counts. And I'd like to bottle up DeRealist Clark. He had a kickoff return last week against Merrimack. D2 Merrimack. By the way, that was their first win in 714 days, Kent State.
0-12 last year.
0-12 last year. And I think that works out to 0-10 to finish the season before. And they have entered this season with an interim head coach, by the way. They couldn't figure it out this offseason.
That is crazy.
That is crazy. All right, we're going to continue on the Dave Campbell's College Podcast Network. If it's happening in college football in Texas, we're talking about it. And something that happened today, Kyle, was Brett McMurphy reporting that Texas Tech's home game against Arkansas in 2030 will move to Vegas. The ensuing news was that home and home is still intact. You'll take a neutral site to Vegas and then play in Fayetteville the following year in 31. And then in 34, play home against Arkansas. Now, I don't know what the Big 12 is in 2034. I don't know what the SEC is in 2034. I think it's a little silly to get worked up for even a game in 2030 in 5 years. But I do think the Big 12 will be mostly the same then because the media rights, correct me if I'm wrong, go through 31.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Okay. So I do think if anything big happens, it'll be in 30-31. If you look at Arkansas's future schedule, these Texas Tech games are the only Power 4 game on the schedule in those years. They are required in the SEC now to play one Power 4 team that's not in the SEC, so they're going to get 10 in. But you and I were going back and forth about this earlier, and I don't want to bring those conversations here, mostly because I was trolling Jackson in that conversation. But here's my actual thoughts. To go to the playoff in the Big 12, you have to win the Big 12 if you're putting together non-cons like Texas Tech is. I think if you went 12-0 in the regular season and lost like TCU did, you probably still get in. But there's a very thin margin of error with this non-con in the playoff. So why not get an outrageous strength of schedule in the non-con? Because those games, wins and losses don't matter for the playoff, especially if you win 2 of them. And if you think you're putting together great teams, why not go bolster your strength of schedule and then go win the Big 12, so it doesn't matter. I guess I see it both ways. I understand the 7 home games that Kirby is doing. I understand this neutral site in Vegas in an odd year or an even year because you're getting those 5 home Big 12 games plus 2 non-cons at home. So have 7 games and a neutral site. I get all that. What I don't get is this non-con and the next non-con that are just depleted. And I guess this should have been Pac-12 with Oregon State. I get that too, but Pine Bluff is on the schedule again in a couple of years. You have ACU again in a couple of years, which they're a solid FCS team, but I'd prefer not to play any. And then you're going to North Texas in a couple of years. And I don't really understand that either, though they do say it's a vibrant, Denton is a vibrant Texas Tech alumni base. And so they're throwing that one out there for them. So I get both schools of thought that you just have to win the Big 12 anyways to get in the playoffs. So just schedule a bunch of wins. But if I had my druthers, it would be bolster the non-con strength of schedule. So you have a little more wiggle room, I'd say, to get in the playoff anyways.
I agree with that. I agree with a more competitive schedule from a fan entertainment standpoint, and I agree with a more competitive schedule from a TV exposure standpoint. North Carolina, I know they have Bill Belichick, but if you look at North Carolina over the last 20 years, they have one, I think, 11-win season under Larry Fedora. Besides that, 5 to 9 wins per year, like pretty mediocre to solid. I don't know if we could get a standalone game on Labor Day or Week 0 or whatever, but I think your odds of being on even, let's call it ESPN2 or Big Fox go up exponentially if you're playing, doesn't have to be Oregon. You can play Kentucky, North Carolina State, who I know is already on your schedule, Michigan State, UCLA, a school like that, yeah, it's going to be hard to get a home and home with Bama. And if you get a home and home with Vandy or Northwestern, it's probably such a bad Power 4 matchup that still nobody cares. But it's like, could you go get Illinois? Could you go get Duke or Virginia Tech? I think so. I think having one total cupcake is fine. Pretty much everybody does that. West Virginia, to their credit, for a long time in the old round robin Big 12, they played their 9 Big 12 games, and then they played 2 Power 4 opponents. Sometimes it was Pitt, sometimes it was Virginia Tech. They played BYU one year, North Carolina State one year. I would be fine with that. Let's say you get Duke and Michigan State on the schedule. Play at Michigan State and then host Duke. And then the next year, play at Duke, host Michigan State. I'd be just fine with that. And I agree with you. If you're a team like SMU last year who went, I think, 11-1 in the regular season with a loss to BYU in the non-con, which wound up being a ranked opponent, and then you lose a close conference championship game to fall to 11-2, you can thread the needle and get an at-large bid. Like you said, if you win the Big 12, it doesn't matter anyway. But if you're going to make it as a team ranked number 11 or 12, you probably need at least a respectable non-con, if not a good one, like an impressive ranked win. So if a team like, let's say TCU or Utah is kind of on the bubble this year, let's say TCU and Utah play each other in the Big 12 championship game, and somebody loses that, and they've got on their resume 4 ranked wins and a non-con beatdown of either North Carolina or UCLA. That's going to look better than, let's say, Tech goes 10-2 and misses the Big 12 championship game on a tiebreaker or something, and they look at our non-con and go, okay, Pine Bluff, Oregon State, and Kent State. Like, we have no chance in that discussion. We're already at a disadvantage even if we have Arkansas on the non-con. So I agree with you on all fronts. I don't really understand our scheduling strategy over the past few years, which seems to be kind of mirroring how basketball used to be. Make it as easy as possible, play as many cupcakes as possible. I don't like that approach for a litany of reasons. I was a little curious what kind of bag was thrown at us at first when this was reported. That, okay, we just gave up a home game in exchange for what exactly? And then the details came out later that you, at least on paper, still get the home game in 2034. A lot can change in that time span. Arizona was supposed to come to Lubbock. There was a pandemic, and then they joined our conference. We were supposed to go to Oregon, and then that allegedly got postponed. I don't think that game will ever get played. That's just my opinion. NC State was weird. We went there in 22, and they don't come back till 27. So
That is really weird.
ideally, it's a home and home 1 year, and then the following year. But I'm just fine with adding a neutral site Power 4 game as long as you're not losing a Power 4 home game, and it doesn't look like we did. I did see somebody doing some kind of non-con guy math that if we replace the 2030 Arkansas home game with a Kent State, then we are still losing a Power 4 home game on the net because we were probably going to schedule a Power 4 home game in 2034 anyway. I don't know if I believe in all that. That's a lot of hypothetical dots to connect. To me, on paper, right now, you had Arkansas twice, home and home. Now you have Arkansas 3 times, home and neutral. So to me, that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I actually really like how the Arkansas thing lined up. I think Don Williams reported that Vegas Classic is August 31st, which would be, I guess, week 1 of 2030, Saturday night. So it's not like in a creative window, but it is week 1, Labor Day weekend. And I would assume that's going to be a night game, but I have no idea. It could be like that Clemson LSU spot that you had this week. Certainly will be on ESPN or Fox and not ESPN Plus. But I think my dream here, right, and you've discussed this in the past, where you played Nebraska home and home in it at one point in a 3-game set, you played them neutral site in Arrowhead.
Yes, at Arrowhead.
And if you can work that together with more Power 4 teams and say, if you come here, we'll also meet you neutral and go there. And to go even further, if that neutral site is in a fancy window, let's say it's on a Thursday at Arrowhead to start the year, or let's say it's on that Monday of Labor Day and you get in that spot, then I'm even further into it. I also like, it's not just that it's Vegas. I like a neutral site if you also get a home and home. Especially if it's Kansas City or Arlington, or even if you went to Atlanta and played an SEC school in the Mercedes-Benz Dome.
Well, I was going to say there are, to me, 4 neutral sites that make a lot of sense for Tech. Las Vegas, if you're playing somebody from the West Coast. Jerry World, obviously, you could play just about anybody at Jerry World. NRG, if you're going to play somebody from the SEC like we did with Ole Miss in 2018. And Arrowhead, if Pat wants to throw us a bone and you want to play somebody from the Midwest or, up north kind of. That is my one minor gripe about this Arkansas neutral site game is Jerry Jones, the namesake for Jerry World, which is where all of your alumni live, is an alumnus of Arkansas. If we played them in Arlington, I think it'd probably be sold out. You'd have both fan bases very well represented. Nobody has to travel that far. I don't know why we're going all the way to Vegas to do this when we could do it in Jerry's house. I'm sure there's a reason, but that's my minor gripe about it. Vegas is going to be a lot of fun, especially if Tech fans want to make the trip. But I would kind of reserve Vegas for if you want to play USC or Washington or even like Boise State. I would totally do a home and home with Boise State and then a third one in Vegas. And Boise State is probably a kind of program that wouldn't turn down any Power Four opportunity. So that's how I would do. If I was Kirby Hocutt, I would be looking for these 3-game series just to lock them down. And I'll tell SEC teams we'll do home and home, and then meet us in Houston. I would tell Big Ten teams home and home, and then we'll meet you at Arrowhead. And I would tell Boise State, Oregon, whoever, home and home, and then we'll meet you in Vegas halfway. So you're booking these 3 at a time. And again, God forbid you play 2 Power 4 non-cons in 1 year. I think it's doable. West Virginia has done it before in addition to a 9-game conference slate. And there's no rule or law that is stopping you from doing that. So I like the idea of a more competitive, aggressive non-con schedule.
I think as it stands, it was a win-win with Arkansas. And I would assume that was the Vegas Classic reaching out and saying, hey, you're 2 programs that we'd like to have. And I believe it was Utah, Oregon State that also got announced today for 28.
BYU,
Oregon State.
Yeah.
Yes, in Allegiant. Excuse me to the BYU and Utah fans for messing that one up.
Vegas was actually part of my pitch for back in the day when it was just USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten, and I was trying to get 4 or 6 teams out west to form the Pac, however many that would be. I was like, you don't have to go to Corvallis and Pullman. You could have an agreement between the farthest schools that you meet in Vegas every year. Yes, you give up 1 home game. You also give up an away game on the other side of the country. And you kind of plant the conference's flag in Vegas. So I'm not opposed to it. I do prefer college football games to be played on a college campus. But again, this is in addition to the home and home. So it's much less of a gripe for me than if we were giving up a home game for it, or if we just announced out of the blue, hey, we're going to play Ole Miss 1 time at NRG Stadium. I'd be like, well, why not just twice and make it home and home? So after the full report came out, to me, it seems like a good move. At first, I was like everybody else on Twitter, like, why are we giving up a home game for no reason? But that doesn't appear to be the case.
All right, Kyle, for this week, let's run through a couple of picks. Are you ready?
Yep.
Let me be prepared here. All right, we will start with, we're not going to do all of these, I don't think, but we'll start with the Cy-Hawk Classic, Iowa State. Iowa State minus 3.5 at home.
Picked against Iowa State both times this year. I really want to pick them in this game, but I worry if I do, it will doom them. So give me the Hawkeyes.
Iowa. I don't believe in curses. Give me Iowa State. We'll go SMU Baylor next, and this is at SMU. Number 17 SMU on the CW network at Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas, Texas. SMU minus 3.
I have got what I think is a very strong take about this Baylor squad, but it can't really be revealed until the mailbag. So for now, I'll just leave it at I'm picking SMU to cover.
SMU minus 3. I took Baylor against Auburn, and they screwed me. So I'm waiting with bated breath for your pick or your take in the mailbag, and we'll also take SMU minus 3. I do think this is a good bounce back spot for Baylor, but looking at their schedule, they could go 2-4 fairly easily.
Did you say bated breath?
Yes.
So a guy said that today in a meeting, and then he followed it up with like a quick joke. He was like, yeah, I know big words. And I was like, those are 6 letters each. Like, does he think he just is Mr. Thesaurus over there? But anyway, that's the second time today I've heard that term. And the first time I was, I guess, supposed to be impressed by this guy's vocabulary. But anyway.
No, I wouldn't say I was trying to be impressive per se. I could drop some words though if you want me to. Kansas, Missouri. What do they call this?
The border war.
Games.
This, I had a college game day take that I'll expound upon just a little bit here. In the era of the quote unquote Power Two, college game day and Big Noon Kickoff can go to Columbus or the equivalent pretty much any weekend they want if they just want to do helmet logos. Like Nebraska will be playing Michigan, Ohio State will be playing Penn State. You can do that literally any week. What you can't always do is go to a renewed rivalry game that hasn't been played in 15 years, where the two sides literally fought and shed blood over how much they hate each other 150 years ago when the rivalry started. Teams that have played each other 100 plus times, that they don't even agree on the all-time series record because two of the game's final scores are disputed because one of them alleges that the others cheated for it. That's kind of a once in a, decade-ish opportunity for game day. And they said, but Michigan and OU's helmet logos. And so this is going to be an amazing game. It's a game that college football used to celebrate regional, deep, historic rivalries. And now is kind of second fiddle to whoever Ohio State or Michigan is playing any given weekend. OU went 6-7 and lost to Navy last year, by the way. So got to spotlight that one because they were really good in the 1950s or whatever. Anyway, my heart says Kansas. We need this one, Big 12 over SEC. If you've seen some of the memes Mizzou fans share, by the way, on this historic rivalry, Kansas definitely on the right side of that history. Mizzou fans, I'm not really sure what the hell they're doing, especially in the year 2025.
Yeah.
Really need Kansas to come through on this one, so give me the Jayhawks.
And that is plus 6.5 you're getting.
I don't think I'll need that, but I'll take it.
I will trail that. But I want them to win outright.
Yes. And I think
to the Bobcats of Ohio as they host West Virginia. Plus 3.5 here for Ohio.
I'll take the ears.
I will also take the ears. That was an interesting line. 3.5.
Ohio did give Iowa State fits a couple years ago.
Yeah.
It's a little bit strange for West Virginia to be traveling to a MAC program. But I still feel okay about laying 3.5.
All right, let's go Arizona State at Mississippi State. This is a 6.5 point line in Starkville.
Give me Mississippi State. I don't like that. Again, I would always root for pretty much any Big 12 team over any SEC team. But I thought Arizona State was a little bit overrated coming into the season. I think they did not look super strong against an FCS opponent. And that's a long road trip. And if you look at most of the away teams, when they travel that far this early in the season, it doesn't go very well for them. Don't know if Mississippi State is that good, but I don't know if they need to be to cover. So give me the Bulldogs.
I hate when we pick the same every game, but it messed me up on the end of the bench, and I got a punishment out of it. So I'm going to also trail you because I also want to pick Mississippi State minus 6.5. I'm going to be me.
Wait, the Bulldogs are getting 6.5, right? Not laying 6.5?
Right.
Okay.
Did I say that wrong?
You said Bulldogs minus 6.5, and I was like, well, I'm not high on Arizona State, but I don't know if
I did write it that way. Yes, plus 6.5. Okay, that's going to go to Houston Rice. Rice 1-0 after beating ULala. Houston laying 13.5 in Houston, but at Rice Stadium.
Yeah, sure. Give me the Cougars.
All right, we'll differ here finally. Give me Rice to cover.
Is this a revenge game? They lost to Rice last year, didn't they?
Was it last year or the year before?
Yeah, I can't remember.
They have lost to him recently.
Yeah, that's a fun rivalry, though.
Sure. Houston needs a rival. Let's do Kansas State Army. Army just lost to Tarleton. Now they go to Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. And Kansas State is laying 17.5.
If Army had done anything besides lose at home to Tarleton State, I would have probably taken Army. I also think the very casual bettor is looking at Kansas State and fading them, especially with 17 and a hook. I think this is a line that is designed to get you to bet against Kansas State, so I'm actually going to go with the Wildcats. I'll take EMA minus 17 and a half.
I'll be the casual. I don't know if there are enough possessions in this game for Kansas State to beat Army by 17.5. I certainly think that Kansas State will control this game, but that's a lot of possessions to win by 3 possessions. And
you can certainly play ball control with the triple option offense, but if you go 3 and out, it only takes 2 minutes off the clock. So
true. I'm going to read a few lines. These are not actually for the picks. Oklahoma State, Oregon favored by 28.5. Thoughts on that one?
I'm just enjoying the Gundy and Lanning discourse.
It's interesting. Did you see Mike Gundy's nipples the other day?
Unfortunately, I did, yes.
At least
the algorithm fed me a heavy dose of Mike Gundy's nipples.
Yeah. Cincinnati favored by 21.5 over Bowling Green and Eddie George.
You know, Rob, you have a line of thought on games like this that in-state games, let's say you're playing for Sam Houston and you get a shot at Baylor.
Yeah.
The guys playing for Sam Houston were guys that probably wanted that Baylor offer and it never came, and so they play with an edge or a chip. I'm pretty sure Bowling Green is in Ohio. It might be in Kentucky because there's both, but I think it's in Ohio. And those kids playing for Bowling Green, they probably grew up dreaming of being Bearcats, and that call never came. So give me the Bowling Green. Are they the Falcons?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bowling Green.
Oh, you want to pick this game?
Oh, sure. No, or not. I don't care.
No, I was just saying it. 21.5 seems too big to pick. But you'll take Bowling Green there. That's interesting. I would not pick that game, but Delaware, Colorado. Colorado favored by 23.5. And then the last big line I didn't choose, but could if you want to, because it's within 20. Stanford, BYU. BYU minus 18.5.
BYU will cover that. My only thought on Delaware, Colorado is, can Delaware not find a more regional non-con opponent?
There's plenty up there.
Go play Maryland.
Yeah. Or UConn or Rutgers. Yeah, anybody else, really.
Yeah.
All right, now let's go to Texas Tech, Kent State. We will pick this game. We will pick it against the spread. Texas Tech, 48.5.
Yeah, give me Tech. I shied away from 52.5 or 54.5, whatever it was when we picked it, just because that's a lot unless you are willing to play a certain style. And we were throwing the ball, going up tempo, we were not worried about running up the score. So, I don't think it's one of those things where you get up 38-0 and then let your foot off the gas. So, yeah, this week I am confident they'll cover.
I am also confident. Did you see Mac Leftwich tell Will Hammond, we're not running the ball, we're running the offense, baby?
I have not seen that yet.
I like that line. All right, let's go get a couple of games from across the country. Let me just read a few to you, see what you're working with here. We got Illinois Duke in the top 25. We've got an SEC game in Ole Miss, Kentucky. That's 10.5. and Michigan, Oklahoma, which I know you have thoughts on, at 5.5. Do any of those whet your whistle?
Not really.
South Florida, Florida is 17.5. Man, that was a really good week 1. I don't know that there's as good of action here in week 2.
Yeah, I'm good.
Let's do this. Let's go Virginia, North Carolina State at Raleigh for the ACC, 11 a.m. And this is a -2.5 at the home venue for the home team.
I'm pretty sure Cumbie has LSU this week if we want to pick that one.
Yeah, that's in the 30s. We can.
Give me the fighting Sonny Cumbies.
All right, but what about NC State -2.5?
I don't know anything about NC State or Virginia. Give me NC State. Whatever. We've played them before.
Okay. I also want NC State at home, though. Mostly because I don't like Virginia. We've also played Virginia before.
Yeah, it was a lot further back than we played NC State, though.
That is true. In a bowl game.
Also played them both in the NCAA tournament. They both beat us in the NCAA tournament.
It's true.
Damn.
In both games that I didn't really enjoy. Never enjoy a win, but those two in particular stuck out. Man, there are no good games on this slate. Oh, here we go. The final one. We've got Texas State UTSA. This is an ESPN Plus game. It should be on ESPN 1, according to GJ Kinney. I love how he said ESPN 1 instead of just ESPN. You can tell he doesn't have much familiarity with the ESPN networks. This is a 4.5-point line to the home Jeff Trailers, hosting Texas State. And true to our Dave Campbell's podcast name, if it's happening in college football in Texas, we're talking about it. Texas State 1-0, UTSA 0-1 after really punching A&M in the mouth a little bit. And then kind of falling by the wayside at the end. 4.5 to UTSA at home.
Yeah, I think I'll take the Roadrunners.
All right. I said I wasn't going to do this earlier, but just to be different, give me Texas State on the road. I like GJ Kinney. Plus 4.5.
Mac Leftwich will not walk through that door.
All right, that's 10 games. That's enough. All right. Thank you for watching. If you're hanging around on the Dave Campbell's Podcast Network, College Football Podcast Network, if you want to join for the mailbag, tap into patreon.com/gamblinggauchos. Love you.